Okay, cool. So very first part of the book after the preface and the opening, and especially the new author. This is the version that I linked above and the version I really recommend you get. It was updated and revised for the 21st century by a really cool guy named Arthur Pell. So he just changed out some of the examples, added a couple examples with more modern people like Bill Gates, stuff like that. He talks more about it. And I'm sure you'll see it on the Amazon page or in the listing or wherever the book is. But you get through the prefaces. First original story is the man who thought his way into a partnership with Thomas Edison, and that is Edwin Barnes. Edwin Barnes, really, really crazy. I'm going to transition over to the computer, and we're going to break down exactly how to turn this burning desire, this passion, and this internal drive into your means to think and grow rich. Okay, let's go. So Edwin, he's just a normal guy, and he decides that, look, for whatever reason, he picks this one thing he wants to do. The one thing he wants to do, one thing, is work with Edison. Not for Edison, work with Edison. So what's he do? Well, he says, okay, how am I going to make this happen? I've got my goal. This is my goal. To get here, I think I need to go over to where Edison was working, I think in New Jersey, right? So here's New Jersey, and he's in, I think, Philadelphia. Far, far away. He's far away. And he can't really afford a train ticket, which sucks. What are you going to do? He says, look, I'll hop a freight train. So he hops a freight train for no other reason than to get to New Jersey so that he can meet Edison, get in front of him, and start to work towards his overarching goal to actually, partner with him. And so, takes a train, not a normal train, right? He couldn't afford a normal train. He had to work with what he had. He had to take a freight train because that was his only option. He gets here, and once he gets there, he has to work for years at this tiny little lower wage position for a nominal clerical wage for Edison. And he starts working and working and working, and he works, I think he says, for about 2 years, just hard, dedicated, persevering, and giving everything he has to Edison. Bam, bam, for years and years. For years. Because he understands that that's the way he's going to add value to that relationship. You want to, give before you take anything from him. And if he wants to work with him, that's a really, really big goal, right? So he has to put in the effort, and he has to work and show Edison that he's worth it. And then, over time, he builds that relationship, and he builds that trust, and he builds that knowledge. All because, at a fundamental level, he has this one thing he wants to do, and that's work with Edison. So his actions reflect his goal. These actions reflect his goal. And they only occur, right? He only takes this massive train ride to Edison, right? He only has these very, very massive actions because he had this goal, and he was so utterly convinced that this burning desire and passion had to happen, that's what he spent his time doing, and that's where he dedicated his efforts. And it paid off, right? Over time at the end, and as you guys read, you'll see, a freaking really crazy thing happened. And there's a quote here that is insane. This quote, this statement is huge. It says, just what young Barnes said to Mr. Edison on that occasion was far less important than what he thought. Edison himself said so. It could not have been the young man's appearance that got him to start in the Edison office, for that was definitely against him. It was what he thought that counted. That was right after he partnered with Edison to distribute his new invention, the Ediphone, because none of his other sales reps wanted. Well, that was when he was getting hired, right? So he was getting hired at the beginning when he showed up at the office. So that was when he got hired. The reason he got hired so quickly was because he had this insane belief in himself that he deserved, this was going to happen, and there was this long-term goal he was working towards. And because he had this vision for his future, he had this insane compassion, and this really important thing here actually led to his personality. It led to confidence. It led to, landing that job. He landed the job because he was totally convinced in himself. And it gave him drive every single day. And it gave him independence of a sort, because he was working for himself at a hard job. And that independence allowed him to go harder, 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 harder. All because he had this mental clarity with what he was doing, why he was doing it, and how he was going to do it. That was at the beginning. That was really, really powerful. It all was because of thought, right? Because it was in his mind that he had this position. It was in his mind that he'd done this, and that's what allowed him to do it. That's what created those results. Later, after he's worked and worked and worked, Edison has the Ediphone, and none of his sales reps want to distribute it. So he decides, hey, look, I'll give it over here to Barnes, and Barnes starts to work with it. He gets the Ediphone, and it's a huge hit, smashing success. After years and years and years, he finally starts to partner with him, and Edison builds it, but Barnes installs it. He sells it to everybody, and then he just starts distributing it to the masses, which is awesome. And once he does that, he crushes it, because he's got this huge positioning in the marketplace. And I think they show it in here, right? They coin the phrase "made by Edison, installed by Barnes." I mean, he sells millions and millions and millions, worth so much. But that doesn't come at the beginning, right? At the beginning, he's working very, very minimal job, but he's investing in that relationship. He's working towards his overall goal, and that overall goal is what years later facilitates him getting to distribute the Ediphone and making, tons and tons of cash doing that. It took a long time, right? He didn't just do that immediately. It took years and years and years of his life to really get to that final point where he was able to cash in and make tons of money, and it was awesome. But you got to remember, it all starts with this single goal at the beginning, and then once he uses that as his ambition, his perseverance, his drive, his burning desire, that's what leads to the actions. That's what leads to everything that he does afterwards. And only through that process of commitment to himself and commitment to his goal does he actually reach that end destination of growing rich. And it's a whole internal change during that, as he actually goes through the process, works up towards it, and then finally achieves that end goal. So really important base fundamental here of committing to yourself. And then we'll talk more about long-term goals throughout this. This is a very important part. But understanding, giving you the belief that this man, he was nothing special, right? He could have been, anyone could have done this. Anyone could have just gone and said, hey, give me a clerical job at your Edison's offices. And the thing that separated him from so many other people, and the reason that he was able to partner with Edison while hundreds of people that worked with him just weren't, is because he had the thought. And he had the totally convinced belief that he was going to work with Edison. That's what he made happen. All because he had it up here first, and then he brought it into reality. Super important underlying concept. We'll expand on it throughout these modules and throughout this book, and it'll make more sense. So, awesome stuff, guys. Let's keep going, and it'll be amazing.